Good afternoon, good evening, or wherever you're watching from, whatever time it is. I'm Aaron with Bowtie Treasures. I'm a content creator with Dixie Belle, and I'm always happy to be here. I'm glad you guys are all here joining us. If you're watching by replay, let us know. If you're tuning in, say hi. Let us know where you're watching from. For the next few minutes, we're going to work on this project behind me, and I'm excited to demonstrate some techniques. I titled this project Pink with Attitude because we're not just painting pink, but we're going to give it a little bit of a look, a little style, a little grunge to it, a little character. And I want you to use your imagination as to what colors you might try and what techniques you might do, just to give you some different looks to your piece. This is I want to call it an antique desk, but I don't really know exactly how old it is, so I don't want to peg it as antique, but it's old. So let's get into it. Let me give you a little bit of a progress of where I'm at as far as colors. First of all, we are going to be using peony, all Dixie Belle chalk mineral paint colors. And then we're going to use some Mason-Dixon gray to bring in the gray and bring in the attitude. And then we'll use also hurricane gray to darken it up and to add a little bit more depth to it. That's at least on the base. I'm not going to do it tonight, but the top has been sanded. I'll probably use a Voodoo gel stain, most likely Black Magic on that, just to continue the gray tones. I think that'll look really good. I've got a few brushes I'm going to be using tonight. Of course, for you, use whatever brush you have that accomplishes your task. Oftentimes, it's nice to have a variety, so as you're building your repertoire, that's always helpful. But again, I'll go through those brushes tonight. Everything from a mini all the way to the scarlet. So we have a lot to do in just a short amount of time. So how about we just jump right in there, all right? I think that would be awesome. I have this desk, Vanity desk at multiple stages, meaning on the far other side, I have it done. I did that last night on my Facebook, Bowtie Treasures Facebook page, just kind of practice and also talk and hang out with my fans and followers there. But tonight I thought we would start with Boss. This is Boss Gray. My favorite Boss is the gray. And it's not unusual for me to let that gray actually play a little role in the finish of a piece. So that's no different tonight. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the pink, the peony pink back or into this piece, and then I'll show you and walk you through the whole steps. That way we don't have to do a lot of, I don't have to bring out my heat gun or a blow dryer to dry it all down. I've already got different stages happening, so I think that'll help us. But I've got the heat gun just in case, so that's what we'll do. 10. All right, I'm gonna just use again, brush size is up to you. I'm just gonna use it just because I'm not painting a lot of paint with the peony. This is the flat medium, and so that's what I'm gonna be using. Nice, good size, durable brush. And so I'm just going to jump right into this. I do have a couple bottles. I've got a larger squirt bottle. It gives a little bit more volume of a spray of, it's not a mister at all, and you can adjust it. But so that's going to be when we really need to move some paint. I've got a mister bottle I'll use as well. Be sure to, in order to accomplish this tonight, you probably are going to need some kind of way to spray that paint. So we're gonna jump right in here. For this particular piece, I didn't do much repairs at all. I did some light sanding. I totally sanded the top, but I didn't do any repairs. I've got some veneer issues here and there. Like I said, I'm going with the pink with attitude approach here. So I'm letting all the dings and the character and the life that this piece is experience, I'm gonna let all that stay in here. And sometimes I don't feel like a piece has to be totally restored to its original finish, but it does depend on, I guess, the quality and the type of piece. But if this was a customer's piece and they're asking me to kind of spruce it up, but when you're going for some, you want those character spots and things like that, I leave a lot of that there. And it almost sets the next person, the buyer, up to know that, you know, you're getting something with a little bit of age and life to it. Let's roll with it, right? Deborah, I did make this Lazy Susan. I have that on my website, bowtietreasures.com. I do have an Amazon link, and right at the top of that Amazon link, my page on my website, I kind of talk about how I made it. To me, it's a lifesaver from a standpoint of, of course, with a little help, I get these pieces on there, but it allows me to not have to sit on the floor. I just can't, I can't sit on the floor too well. My knees will not appreciate that. So it really allows me to, it's very versatile, but you can definitely make those yourself. I could paint this vanity desk all pink and call it a day, but where's the attitude then, right? That would be pretty simple. And I'm always trying to push the envelope a little bit and even share that look with you all, and here we are. So I think that'll work. So we didn't spend much time with the pink, but I wanted to demonstrate how I applied it and about where I made the decision of where to stop with that. So that's where the pink is. So we're gonna leave this left side as is and let it dry. If we have time, we'll get back over there, but this part and then the inside is all dry, so I'm gonna work on that. We're gonna switch now to, I think I'll go ahead and switch to the Mini. And we are using Mason-Dixon Gray now. I did put the links to a link that if you're needing to order some Dixie Belle products, you can use that link I put in the description. You can also check out to see if there's a Dixie Belle retailer in your area. But I'll do my best to describe what I'm doing. Some of you guys could help me fill in, anybody that joins late, but this is Mason-Dixon Gray, and this is what I'm going to paint at the top and work my way down. I haven't decided yet, but I may, on the mirror, I may reverse this process and go pink down to gray. I think that sometimes is a fun look. So again, I'm just getting the paint on there. I'm not planning on doing 2 coats of these colors. I'm relying and using the gray underneath, which is the Gray Boss, So right now I'm going over the pink, and I'm going to use the other side. So I do want to cover it up a little bit, because when I start applying water, which I'm going to do right now. So now I'm going to use a squirt bottle. So I'm spraying. You got to usually the first spray will hit the paint, bite into the paint. The second spray is kind of where things start moving a little bit. So if you're not seeing anything moving, now keep in mind I have these ridges, so it's going to take a good bit of work to get the paint to jump over. So maybe with that in mind, now that I think about it, let's put some paint at the top of the drawer. I didn't think about that last night, but in my mind now I'm going, that's not going to work. So we'll use that as our guide, and I think that's okay. I don't need a lot of paint here. I just need the paint to move, okay? Now, last night, in fact, this is the same rag I used last night, so I can continue the same texture. And I'm just going to now dab this. Let me bring you in real quick because it's important to know. So that light color is the Boss. So I'm using the Boss as, hopefully that is coming through. I'm going to use my mister bottle, because the misting bottle will allow me to dab and lift. You can see it's already working its way down here. For this technique, I don't want a lot of running rivers, if you will. I'm not sure what those officially would be called, but so I want texture and I want layers. And so right here, it looks like I need to put a little bit more paint in. I don't want too much of the pink there, but I don't want to lift it off either. So it's okay to have a little bit of color coming through. So there'll just be some areas where I don't want it perfect. And because there's paint on my rag now, I can actually put some paint on the pink area. I don't want to bring that too far down, okay? And I might even grab a separate rag just to wipe off anywhere. We're going to come back later on and we're going to tone this pink down, and I'll show you that here in a little bit. One thing I'm going to do real fast is just lift the drawer out. I don't want too much water underneath. Just set that back in there. So this is really the basic look, except for in a little bit we're going to come back and we're going to tone it down and we'll add some dark. Remember, we haven't used the hurricane gray yet, so that's going to be next. While that's setting up, because I don't really want to bring out the heat gun right now, because it's going to be easier for the camera to pick up, let's work on this intersection. So we're going to repeat the same steps. First thing we're going to do is the hurricane gray. And then we'll get some of this you may not be see underneath, so just remember how we handled the other side. Notice how, you'll know, it's really important to know that we are only going to work on one panel at a time, because you can't have your entire vanity or project all dripping everywhere. So it would be impossible to manage that kind of work unless you're just really good. But to me, it's just better to go ahead and work one side, and you can always use another side as reference of where your starting point is. So I'm painting down into, once I get into the peony, that's about where I want this color to stop. Because when I lift some of this, I want some of the pink to show through. I don't want too much of the boss. So I think that's pretty good right there. Next step, if you remember, is you can do this with a mister bottle, but I'm able to put a lot more water down. You can get a smaller squirt bottle. This is just the one I have. I've also tried it with vinegar, half vinegar and half water, but for some reason I couldn't find that, and that creates a really cool texture too. So remember, the first spray starts grabbing the paint. The second spray is really where things are going to start slipping and sliding and running down the piece, so you can see. Oh, we're getting in the light there. You can see right there how it's already, that was the extra spray. So that's the part that I'm dabbing off. Try and give you guys a good view there. So I'm going to dab that off. If you have to, rub it off, but use the texture of the rag. Sometimes I have rags that have a lot of texture, and there are other ways to add texture. So here is where you can start seeing the boss peek through, and that's perfectly fine for me. So we're almost doing a sponging texture blend. You see I'm kind of gradually going from the gray to the pink, okay? So just you pat or don't pat. If you like the drips, then you just let it go. If you don't, pat it off and dab. Do whatever works for you on your particular look and style. But that's two pieces now, two sides that we've done here and here. Now this one is looking to me as if we've gotten a little low now that I think about it. So I'm actually going to go back. Let me wet that section. I actually think I'm going to go back. Let's see if this will work. I've got two rags here. I don't want to get that low. So let me wipe some of that off. And you're going to say it's a little backwards, but I just don't want to get that low. So, and then I'll come back, and this is where I'll bring my texture back in there. I'm not too worried about that, because here in a minute we're going to do a technique, and I've kind of already started it, where we'll tone that gray down. I'm just going to go ahead and bring in some of this Mason-Dixon gray, so that I don't know if we'll get the whole vanity desk done here on live tonight, but we'll do our best. I'll use as much of the time as we can. so that you get the full process of how it all builds up. It's important to realize that on projects like this, and I told my followers last night that don't worry too much about every single panel looking perfect, if you will, because it's going to be more about how does the whole desk look. All right, so in this particular piece, and we're getting a little bit of the shine from the light, but I need that same texture that I got over here, so it needs to go through the same process where we're going to give it some water. We're not trying to blend into any pink. A little bit of spray, and that'll loosen up that paint so that I can do some dabbing and let the boss color. If you don't want the boss color to be the color that's revealed, then paint over the boss and put another color there. Like, for example, just an idea, you could paint this entire thing pink, paint over it in Mason-Dixon gray, and let the pink peek through. That would be another way of using this technique. I'm going to lighten the middle and around the hardware. I think that would be nice. Okay. Now, one thing I did last night, and let's go ahead and jump in there pretty quick because I almost forgot. I went ahead and used the Hurricane Gray while the piece was wet. I kind of messed up over there. I'm not sure that's going to hurt too much to do it later, but I'm going to wet, and I'm going to go ahead and bring in this Hurricane Gray while this section is not dry. What I'm creating right here is a little bit of almost like a shadow from the top. You can fade that while it's wet. You could add a little bit more paint and really let it drip down. I think I'll just, I don't want it to look like I'm blending. So again, we can come back and give that new gray a little bit of touch there. I'd like to put a little bit more paint. I think I just took off more than I wanted to. But all that work is going to be okay. So what I did was I just carefully, and I think I'm even going to dab because I want texture. I don't want it to look like I'm doing a soft blend. So we just added Hurricane Gray to this area up here and over on the left. Just subtle, just a little bit of some depth to, because we can. While we're here, let's keep going with the Hurricane Gray. I think I'm going to put some in here and here. I'm not going to go all the way across. These are just subtle touches, and then I'm going to wipe off or dab off the high points of this detail, but leaving the Hurricane Gray in the shadow. That's probably not going to pick up necessarily on camera, but it's just the little things like that that give it. So I'm kind of forcing some shading and depth here. These are just techniques that you have to pay $5 for the tutorial on YouTube for, right? You're like, how'd they do that? We're just playing, that's all it is. All right, so if you feel like you have gotten too much paint on your rag, get another rag, it's okay. Let me pull you in really again, just to, let's look at the texture. See if my camera will grab it, there we go. So I've got texture here, a little texture there. It almost might start feeling like stone. There's some more texture. It's still wet. And it's going to get better as it dries. So some areas we still need to do the inside, but it's a little harder for me to get. I can get it, but right now I'm kind of just budgeting my time here. We're about halfway through. All right, so far so good. If I'm aiming for texture, except for maybe using something like sea spray, we're totally getting it. Once again, feel free to just drop a comment in there if there's something that you want me to answer after the live, and I'm happy to go back and do that. I still need to do the hurricane gray on the other side, and hopefully it doesn't mess me up too much that I didn't do that, but that's just, when you're live, you kind of, it's hard to remember everything. There's a lot of moving parts to all this, but I think I'll be okay. As long as I'm getting my texture, some of this doesn't really matter if I do exactly the same. Probably the biggest variable for me, that if you're going to do something like this, that you want to keep in mind is the element of the texture. So if I'm using rag A tomorrow, I don't, and I haven't got the whole piece done, I would keep going with the same rag, just because tomorrow's rag might have a hexagon pattern, and that would not be a consistent look. I'm gonna put a little bit of, so we just painted this tonight, so it's already dried to the touch, and that was nice. Do you remember on this side here, we went below this rung? So we're gonna do that over here, just so that when I spray it with water, it'll go over that bump. I usually don't find that I need to go back and do anything over, but don't feel like you couldn't. You know, if you just didn't like the look of it tomorrow, it's, you know, give it a light sand just so it's nice and smooth, and try something else. But, or just put another thin layer of something else on there, right? Because if you're going for layers, the more layers, the more complex the piece, the more interesting it can look anyway. All right, so here we go with the squirt bottle. Kind of want to be careful that I don't want to mess up where I was just at. But again, not the end of the world. As long as I don't touch it over there, we should be okay. Just waiting for it to activate, if you will. And we're going to go ahead and go in there now. Let me bring you in for the step and see if I can adjust it so we don't have as much glare. So yeah, now I'm just bringing out the underlying color a little bit, which, as we all know, is boss. My rag's getting a little wet, maybe too wet, because I'm lifting up too much paint. I think I put too much water on this time, so we'll adjust around that. And I'll show you in just a minute. We're getting close to the next step, but I'll show you in just a minute why it's not so critical. Let me put a little bit more paint down in here. And I can use the end of the brush to add a little bit of a stipple look. Just whatever gives you that texture. I don't mind that there's pink showing there. All right. Because there's paint on my rag, I'm adding some of that over the pink. And I am going to come back in there. I want a little bit more. I can tell already that the left side's a little lower than the right. So if you wanted to, you can go back and you see that? You see what I'm talking about? How the left side's getting a little lower? We can come back over here. Now remember, this part's dry, so I'm taking a little bit of a chance, but this is one way to kind of balance it out. Keeping it random, add a little bit of water, soften it up. Get some runs down the side. And then we'll give it a little bit of a dab just to soften, give it some texture. And I'm fading it down. Susan from Hershey. Okay, but again, not gonna sweat if it's not perfect. Just need to get it at least a little bit more symmetrical, so like when you're taking pictures, it's not like, what in the world happened there? I'm sure a lot of people think of that of my work anyway. It's like, what in the world is he doing? We're trailblazers, right? How about that? We'll make up a title. Okay, I think that's coming together. We still need to do the inside. I'll do that later on. At this point, we need to do the wash. The wash. All right. Have you used the Scarlet yet? I mentioned this last time to my group, and I've talked about it before, but I'm going to show you pretty much, in my opinion, what this brush is the best at, and that is washes. And you know what? I'm missing my bucket. Forgot to get that out. So we're going to make a quick bucket. Hold on. I just dumped out all the hardware for this piece. So you just need a container that you can put some water in. Next thing we're going to do is I'm going to take my darker, what did I do? Mason Dixon gray. I'm just going to scoop out a little bit with my brush, okay? So you go. No scientific measuring here. All we're looking for is chalk paint soup. And honestly, it has to be watery soup. You don't want, this is not creamy mushroom soup. You want watery. And I wish I could tell you a better way to do this. If it's not thick enough, let it dry and do it again. Because then you're just going along. But I'm just kind of winging this totally, you know, just watery. You get too thick, you're going to cover up all your work. If you wind up in a situation where you feel like you covered up all your work, get a wet rag, sponge it off. I think that would be fine. Now I could use my 1-inch brush or my mini, but this is where I really like the Scarlet. So we're just going to, I'm going to pull it. Let me see if I can pull you in on this a little bit more so we can see it happen, okay? All right, so what I'm doing here, not that the top needs it, but the bottom to me it's bright. So we're going to tone it down, and we're going to just come in here and just, you're not going to see it happen much on the top, but I've just determined I'm going to go over the whole thing because that's what I did last night. Now I'm going side to side because the horizontal sections of the piece kind of dictate that I can't go straight all the way down. But this is what I wanted. This is how I'm going to tone down the pink. You could mix gray and pink and then paint, but I would lose the texture or the depth. This is like whitewashing. Okay, so I'm going up and down when I can, and I'm just applying it over any of the pink on this side. I have so much of this mixture made, so I've got plenty that I can finish the whole piece. And if I have to, I'll put some saran wrap and keep it ready for the next day. So I'm just putting it everywhere. If you want to, you can come in here with your rag and you can control some drips or areas you don't like. I'm not spraying this because it's so wet already. Let's bring in, hopefully this comes through, but do you see how I've got, let me put you guys down a little bit. I've got some runs happening, but they're not prominent, just a little bit, but I tone it down. And the way I can prove that I've toned it down is just simply, I can show you both sides. So the right side has been washed with gray, the left is peony straight up, okay? So this just gives me the ability to tie the whole piece together with gray and just mutes that back. Totally optional. You don't have to tone it down, but that's the look that I felt like would work really well for what I'm doing. Okay, so we need that to dry a little bit, so let's do the wash. We'll let that settle a little bit, and we'll do the wash on the inside. I'm sure it's ready to go, and then we'll come back. I've got still another step to go before we disappear. Layered wash with French linen, very cool. Glad to help with that. All right, so I'm dipping my scarlet into the water. Now I have no interruption elements here. I don't have any horizontal pieces, so I'm just going to go all the way down. Just straight. Anywhere there's pink. I'm not, you're not really going to hurt the underlying color that I did earlier. But notice how I'm not going over. I am overlapping my strokes a little bit, but that's not critical. It's just I'm doing that. But you can go over this as much as you want. And every time you go over it, you're adding a little bit more liquid and more color. But this brush holds so much of this wash. And it's a soft, soft bristle. You see how I just added more right there? That might be a little much. I'm gonna wipe some of that off. And that's it. So here you say, okay, do I want to take any of that off? Sometimes I'll come to the bottom of the piece and just collect some of that extra water. Let's take in a little bit. So you can see where I've got some inconsistencies, but that's the look. If you get any too crazy, then just give it a little touch. It's okay. We want the texture. Do you remember how we put hurricane gradient here and we wiped it off? Let's do that on these little florets. I don't know what else they're called, but so I'm going to just put some right there. Bring it as far as I can. So we're just going to put some right here and inside there. And then I'm just going to give it a quick mist, and then we're going to wipe off the high points. So you can see here how the shading is working a little bit better, okay? So how I faded that shade out. This could be caviar, it could be a darker color if you wanted to. And to continue what we did a while ago, I can come in here and put some towards the sides. And I like to leave the front part lighter. It kind of creates that optical shading. So really I'm putting the color into the crevices of that. Just playing, artistically adding some depth. And I think that always is fun. I'm gonna switch to a craft brush. You could probably use something a little smaller. And I'm going to keep my Mr. Bottle handy here. And I'm looking for opportunities just to add some shading. Many of you have probably seen me do this before. If you've never seen me do this before, it's basically what you might see someone else do with wax, I'm doing with chalk paint. So it just allows me to add some shading and some depth without using a wax product. Not to have anything against it, but that's just how I roll. So that'll dry, moodier, darker, and start looking pretty cool over time. If you wanted to vignette some drawers, if you want to bring in some of these details, that's totally all you, and you get to determine how that's going to look, all right? So I'll do that to the entire piece. That's the gist of this technique. So washes, texture, layers, any part of this that you can use to apply to yours, take part or all or none, but hopefully that gives you some creative ideas to how to use Dixie Belle's products, whether it's their brushes or their paints. And I think that would give you some things to enjoy and try. So hopefully that was helpful. Be sure to follow me on social media, Facebook or Instagram, Bowtie Treasures. I've got a lot of work to do to finish this piece, but you got the steps down, I hope. We've done a lot of it. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Thank you so much for watching tonight. Do something creative this weekend. Have a great day. I'm Aaron with Bowtie Treasures, Dixie Belle content creator. Y'all have a good night.
That's the end of the show. Make sure you subscribe and ring the bell before you go. Bye!